Welcome back to Coding Along. This is Sam, and today we'll be continuing our LeetCode series. And this time we'll be doing the reverse integer. So let's get to it. Given a 32-bit signed integer, given a 32-bit signed integer, reverse digits of an integer. Assume Assume we are dealing with an environment that could only store integers within the 32-bit signed integer range. For the purpose of this problem, assume that your function returns 0 when the reverse integer overflows. So yeah, from this you can see the example here. We write if x is equal to 1 to 3, the output should be 3 to 1, which is the reverse of 1 to 3. So the best way to do this is we're going to use the modulo function, and we get the remainder with modulo, and then this number divided by 10 gives us 12. But the only thing is with Python, that when you're dividing with Python, especially because we have negative, x could also be negative, we have to create our own divide function and create our own modulo function, because with Python doesn't really work well with negative numbers. And when you try to use the modulo for a negative number, it basically tries to make the number positive, which we don't want. And when you try to divide with negative, it gives you it rounds up the whole number. So instead of us getting like 12 after dividing this, we would get 13, because it would be 2.3 and it would just round it up. So yes, let's get to it. You understand what I mean when we make the functions. So we start with def, and here this min int and max int is the conditions for the range, the integer range for overflow. So that's why you see the min int is minus. I just did it earlier to put it into the to basically put it use the power. So this is how it is. We could also use it this way, but I just prefer it this way to actually see the number itself. So yeah, let's get to it. So we say mod takes in a number, and it also takes in, let's just say j, or a digit. Takes in a digit, and mm, okay, let's see, it's not giving me the way I want it to be for some reason. The indentation for some reason is not the way. Okay, now it's working. Don't know what that was all about. So we say if number is negative, and we can say that by saying if number is less than 0, then return, and we return number modulo minus digits, and else we just return number modulo digits. So this is the first modulo. This is the function modulo operator, and this way we've done it now. If it's a negative number, we will change the 10, which we're going to use. We want to get the modulus of 10. We want to use 10 to get the modulus, so we would use that and change it to negative 10. And we would, if it's not negative, we would just use the normal way. So that's why we created this function. And also next is divide. We'll create a function divide. It will take in a number 2 and a digit. And this will, why we're using this too is that we want to first make the number into a float, and then we cast it into an int, because that way it just works better. And this is only for Python. If you're using JavaScript, you don't need to do that. If you're using Java, you don't need to do this. But with Python, because of just the way the program was made, we have to do this to get a good result. We could actually get the answers for this, but when you submit it where they're going to try different values, it won't work. You will get an error. So it's better to do it this way. So now we just return int number times 1.0. That's us making it into a float divided by digits. So these are the two functions we just have to create. So after doing this now we can get to the whole reversing of a number. So how do we reverse a number here? We're first going to get the modulos. So if you get if you say any number modulos 10, you will get the remainder of that number. So here, if we did 1, 2, 3 modulos 10, we would get 3. So then we store that value into variable. And then for us to get the next, like these two numbers without the 3, then we divide it by 10. So if you divide any number by 10, you will get the number minus its last digit. So that's the logic we're going to use. Yes, let's have a result equal to 0. And then we'll use a while loop here. And we'll say while not equal to 0. While what is not equal to 0? While x is not equal to 0. Then we'll have a remainder, which is equal to we use the mod function we just created, and the integer is going to be the number is going to be x, and what we're dividing it by is 10. So when we've gotten this, how do we get the x, the new x value that we're going to try to reverse the next one and get the remainder, is by doing x. Now we use our divide function. I would say x divided by 10 too. So yes, so this is going to be going through a loop until it's equal to 0. So the next thing we have to consider is this overflow, because that's very important for this question, because we don't want it to overflow when it's negative numbers. So how do we do that is we'll have to create conditions for this. So we'd say if result is greater than divide, we use the divide function, and we see we have our maxed int. We use the max int now. That is the condition where it shouldn't exceed, and 10, or so we're basically setting that if it's above this values, if it's above this value here, or the remainder is equal to this 7 here, or less than this 7 here, then we continue doing we continue doing this here. But if it's above all this, then it's overflowed and we return 0. So that's the logic we're using. Now say result is equal to divide max int 10. Let's just make this bigger. And we have to account for the remainder because we want it to still the function we want this while loop to still be working if it's less than 8 or equal. If it's less than 8, it should if it's greater than 8, it should stop. If it's less than 8, it should still work, or if it's equal to 8, it should still work. Only when it's greater than, then we return 0. And remainder is greater than 8. No, greater than 7. Yes, because we're dealing with max int, and the max int is 7. And the why this is 7 and this is 8 is because max int starts with 0, because the computer starts with 0, so it's 0, 1. So that's why this is 8, 7, and this is 8. And that's why you did 2 raised to power 31 minus 1, because we have to account for that we're starting counting from 0, just so you understand that too. But that's not really necessary in this question. And elif, we do the same thing, but now for the min. Less than, divide minint time, or result is equals to divide minint and remainder is less than -8. We return 0. So yes, we wanted to, we'll put a bracket around this because we want this to be done first. We want this to be emphasized first, to be checked first before the other. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments below. I will answer you, and I will make it clearer if you can tell me where exactly you're struggling with. Because the main thing is to understand, is to get the logic behind it. So after this, how do we store the remainders that we're getting so that it can be opposite or reversed? Is we're going to have a result is equal to result times 10 plus remain plus remainder. So basically, if we start at 0, result is 0. So 0 times 10 is 0 plus our remainder, which in this case would be 3. So then result will be 3. Then we go back again, and then our remainder this time would be 2. So it would be 3 times 10, which is 30, plus 2, which is 32, which is already the opposite, 3, 2, 3, 2. You see the 3, 2 here and the 3, 2 here. So that's the logic behind this. So after this while loop, if it equals 0, then we return results. And that's the logic. And this should work. So let's submit it and see if it does work. Yes, it does work. And we can see runtime faster than 20.26 of Python online submissions for the reverse integer. Memory usage 14 MB, less than 99.99 of. So you see, we solved it, and this is the way to solve it for Python. JavaScript, you could use the expression, you wouldn't need to create all this probably. And yes, you would just make sure these constraints are also upheld because it's important for the question. So yes, that's it. We will be continuing this. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe if you gained from this, if you learned from it, like the video, and I will be posting more and more. And I am thinking of also doing a Python tutorial, a beginner's tutorial, and also an intermediate tutorial. So yes, keep your heads up for that. Have a good day, and that's bye from me.